Don't remind me that I'm approaching 30.
We all are, though.
We all are, though. That's the fun part.
Yeah, but me especially.
Why you especially? You just got promoted, dude.
You have a real job.
Yeah. Anyway, let's start the show.
Is a show happening?
What are we doing?
I thought it's just tell us about how depressing adult life is.
We got new floors. We're getting new carpets. We got promotion.
By the way,
Everything
how old was
sucks.
Margaret Belfort?
What?
How old was Margaret Belfort?
What do you mean?
Beaufort?
Yeah. Belfort.
When
she had her
when
kid?
she had her kid?
13?
13.
Okay, yeah. So to make myself feel even better, there was a person who had a child at 13 years old. I feel better now. History.
Oh, do you guys want to know something that's been bothering me since I was told I said something wrong? You know how last week I said it's yeoman of the guard? Apparently it's fucking yeoman of the guard.
Yo, man.
And
I knew it wasn't
I am
yeoman.
so upset about that. Now, to be fair, right now I'm just assuming that the listener was correct. Yeah, but that's totally my thing where like most of what I've learned is through reading. So, yes, I do say things wrong, but I've read them a million times. Like, for example, I always thought it was pronounced cacophony, not cacophony. And that cacophony.
There's a lot of words. Like I'll see in a book and reading it, and I'll have a whole different thing in my head. I understand what it is, and it's usually it's like a proper name, like someone's name, a city.
Hermione.
Yeah, Hermione. I didn't know her name was until I saw the movie.
Oh, I didn't know it until the fourth book, and J.K. Rowling said that nobody knew how to pronounce it, so that's why she did that scene.
Hermione.
And I did the joke of, like, I used to say Sirius. I kept reading it as Cyrus. I was, even though it was spelled as Sirius, I read it as Cyrus when I saw it.
Yeah.
Whenever I see a word that's spelled weird and I don't know how to pronounce it, I just assume it's the stupidest way you can
So
pronounce
I
it.
used to,
Much like
so
Hermione.
I used to,
Is it Hermione
Hermione?
or
Hermione.
Hermione. So I used to,
Oh, I was doing some heavy lifting the other day. I got a Hermione in my side.
so I used to skip over names that I didn't know how to pronounce because they were in languages I didn't understand. And then I saw that Uzo Adebayo had been, when she was a little girl, she asked her mom to call her something like Zoe. And she goes, why would you want to be called that? And she's like, nobody can pronounce my name. And she goes, well, if they learned how to say Tchaikovsky, they can learn how to say Uzo. So ever since then, I've started making a concerted effort, even if I'm just reading, to try and pronounce whatever it is the name that I don't know how to pronounce instead of just skipping over it in my head. So that's a good thing I've done this year. What about you guys?
And welcome to Tudor I Hardly Know Her, starring Gay Rat and Emali.
And I'm Jeff.
And Chef.
And Chef. I like being a Malali. My friend's daughters call me Millie. So that's also acceptable.
Anyway, what are we talking about today, Emily?
Well, I realized we hadn't decided last week what to talk about, so I'm laying in bed last night and I'm like, oh shit, we need to talk about something.
In a cold sweat, tossing and turning.
That's why you woke up scared last night. You're like, what are we going to talk about?
We don't have an episode topic.
The topics.
Curlers in her hair. She's running out to grab her notebook.
No, I simply pulled open. I have one notebook that's got episode ideas and another episode that I actually, or another notebook I use for actual research.
I gave you an episode idea like 3 weeks ago.
Okay,
You're like, yeah,
I was
sure,
totally
honey.
gonna
We'll
do
put
the
that on
booze.
the fridge with all
Garrett,
your other
I was gonna do the
ideas.
booze one, but I figured you'd want to be prepared for that one and not do it.
Hey, you want to hear a funny
Yes.
story? So I woke up, I'd say about an hour and a half ago, and go to the fridge, and there's no cold drinks, no Coke, no juice, no nothing, but there is
You are
beer.
not drinking beer right now, are you? You've
I
been
am
awake
drinking
for
beer
an
right now. 'cause I was
hour. How do
desperate.
you handle that?
It is currently 12:45 for our listeners so that they know what time it is. At least it's past noon.
It is, so bravo.
Now that I have weekends off, I think I want to be a day drinker now. I think that's what I'm going to do with my life.
Okay, we're going to do the booze one. I figured we could do that next weekend when you are here.
That's right. We'll actually have a together episode.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Which I feel are
They
always
really
the best
are.
ones.
So do you want to
Because
do...
you can't play video games while talking.
Yeah, we can monitor you.
We're talking shop right now. Let's actually
Okay,
get
but
to
I
the
was
show.
going to tell you what we were going to do. We're going to talk about
okay.
Thomas Cromwell.
Cromwell.
Ooh.
Fucking Cromwell.
Jeff cut in Mr. Crowley.
Mr. Cromwell. Dare, dare, dare.
But have Ozzy saying Mr. and then you cut in and say Cromwell.
I'm sad. Emily doesn't know Mr. Crowley's song. It's a song by Ozzy Osbourne.
You don't know Mr. Crowley?
Sorry.
It's the street that Mac lives on. Is Crowley.
I
Street.
know.
Which is so
Appropriate.
Which is so like
Yeah.
Yes,
works
I
so
know
well.
that. I just didn't think. I've got a kitty on my lap.
Do you know who Aleister Crowley is?
He's the demon in Supernatural. I mean, he's a
not
demon.
quite.
Shepherd. Yeah.
He's a demon.
He was an occult leader back in the day.
I'm pretty sure Aleister Crowley is an actual demon's name.
Aleister Crowley. Okay.
Welcome to Demon. I hardly know her.
That's a show I want to do. Man, we were talking about this after the Halloween Spooky Ghost episode and how much fun we had, and it seemed like the listeners liked that one too. I just want to do a supernatural podcast.
I know. I want to talk
I-
about Dean and Sam all day long.
No, not that supernatural.
I just don't have the time. I want to. Okay, so he's a supernatural cult leader, but I
me
swear
and
there was
Jeff.
actually a demon named Crowley.
He is in Supernatural named
No,
Crowley.
in
Okay.
the book.
I feel like that gets used a lot in fiction.
That's
I
why I
think
thought it was.
because of
It's because in
him,
the
he's
no,
used
no,
a
no,
lot.
no. Okay, probably, but I thought that the book The Omen, there was a demon named Crowley in it.
I don't know about that. I've never seen The Omen. Let's not worry about this. We
Ugh.
still have someone worse to talk about.
Fucking Cromwell. Fucking Cromwell. Are you guys ready to talk about fucking Cromwell?
I mean, this would be great for after a spooky episode because
I
who's the
would
only
rather
real
not
spooky
do that,
person in
but
history?
okay.
Cromwell. He's just a dick.
He was not a good one. So I don't really talk much about his dickishness in this one so much as like how he ended up being.
By the way, Aleister Crowley was born in 1875, died in 1947, so he's been around for
okay.
a long time.
I just thought he was an actual demon.
His occupation is listed as occultist, poet, novelist, and
Occult-
I
mountaineer.
like the mountaineer part.
He really likes exploring. Okay, are you ready to talk about the
The
demon
dark
Cromwell?
arts.
Okay,
Yes.
so last week when we were talking,
Because, like, I think of all the people that we've talked about since the beginning of the show, he's somebody who's come up so many times, and we've taken the longest time.
Oh.
We just didn't
to talk
realize
about him.
it. We just
I
kind of
know.
finally like we're trying to think of a topic. We're like, wait, have we even talked
well,
about
no,
Cromwell?
I have a lot of topics that we haven't talked about that are worth it. It's just like I try and strike a good balance between like being a silly episode, like where we talk about Tudor ghosts, and then being an episode where we're talking about,
Someone's parents'
very
biography.
yeah, someone's biography basically. So I figured since we just talked about spooky stories,
Spooky,
scary skeletons, we talk about Cromwell. And a fan pointed out to me that you remember last week when I was saying how there was another person whose beheading was really botched. It was Cromwell's.
Mm-hmm.
But he deserved it.
Ooh.
Totally deserved it. Okay, but I'm not really going to talk too much about like why he's a dick. I'm going to talk about how he ended up being in power.
That's probably what
because
more
that's
interesting.
the
See how he
interesting-
got to where he is.
It's really he shouldn't have been where he was really. It was really partly because Henry VII laid the footsteps for a court where the nobles weren't always in control.
Now, I'm trying to remember in the show Tudors, the guy who played him, he's kind of known for playing
Yeah,
kind of asshole characters, anyways.
yeah. It's
if I remember
not.
right.
It's
I can remember.
Rufus Wainwright.
Yeah, because he was an orphan black.
Isn't he
What?
a musician? Isn't he a
I don't know.
musician?
Probably he does everything, but he's always in historical. So Rufus Wainwright was
'Cause he was
in
in,
the Tudors, orphan.
That also sounds like a very cartoony.
You're British.
name.
That's what I mean. It's what happens when you're British. You get a cartoony name.
He was in the Count of Monte Cristo with
Leonardo.
What are you talking about with Brits and cartoony names, Benedict?
They kind of.
Cumberbatch?
He was in my dream last night. I forgot about that. Anyway, you ready? Okay, so Thomas Cromwell was born in 1485, so the year the Tudors came into power, which is quite appropriate. So he was the son of a blacksmith, fuller and cloth merchant, and owner of an inn and brewery. Those aren't three separate people. His dad did all of that.
Me and my 3 dads.
That's a movie.
So his
Is
dad
one of
owned.
them Tom Selleck?
Tom Selleck is all of them. Wait. Can you just imagine Tom Selleck with that mustache? Like, he still looks like 80s Tom Selleck with the curly hair and the
His
mustache.
Magnum PI.
But he's just got like, he's like doing blacksmith stuff.
He'd be the damn finest looking blacksmith I ever seen.
But his dad is apparently just drunk all the time, which if you own a brewery, what else are you going to do?
What else you got to pass the time with?
Pretty much. So he had 2 sisters. Wheel of girl names turn. Tell us the sisters that we shall learn.
Can I?
Mary.
No.
Elizabeth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Catherine and Elizabeth. So when he was talking to Cranmer later on in life, he said he was a ruffian in his youth, and that kind of made me laugh.
Rough.
Because using that phrase, it just it's like when a really rich person is like, yeah, I had a phase where I was really into like grunge, and it's because they listened to Nirvana once. Like, that's my grunge phase.
I had a fox hair phase.
So in his ruffian youth, he skipped out of England, hopped over to France, became a merchant, went with an army. I'm sorry, he did not become a merchant. He became a mercenary.
Really?
I can't read.
Ooh, even better.
He became a mercenary in the French army, marched over to Italy, saw a Florentine banker and was like, hey, can I please help you?
You know what? While I'm thinking of it, would that ever be something worth talking about? Mercenary bands?
Let's talk. How about we have an episode about armies and
We were talking about the warfare back.
Yeah.
We
talked
had
about-
Dan on.
that one was more like naval though. We can definitely do an episode about armies and mercenaries and all that stuff, because that's how Henry VII.
Armies and sleeping.
Shut up.
I like legsies.
We already had an episode about
Yes.
fashion.
So
Anyway.
he entered the service of a Florentine banker, and when I was reading that, I'm like, does Italy have anything but banks? Every time I hear of somebody historical
All Italy
from
are
Italy, it's a bank. And I get it. They were really wealthy, but Jesus, like, didn't anybody need bread?
They had
Or-
plumbers.
I don't. Shut up. Jeff.
Oh, shut up.
Get out of my podcast. He's so me. He's so me. Cromwell. So in his ruffian.
So the 3 things Italy's known for: banks, Super Mario.
Pasta?
Pasta.
Let's go to Italy. So in his youth, he learned plenty of different languages because he was gallivanting across Europe.
It's a
It was-
fascinating
it was his
life
gap
already
year.
for a guy who's from a very common family.
His dad was a blacksmith, right?
Like, I'm going to go to different countries and become a mercenary
Right?
and then become a banker. What the hell?
What are you doing, dude? So then in 1515, so he was 30 years old, he returned to England. Did I do that math right? 85 to 15? That's 30, right?
Correct.
Thanks.
No, that's right.
He returned to... Thanks, Burt Reynolds. He returned to England and he married Elizabeth Wicks, I'm assuming is how her name is said. And she has 3 children, Gregory, Anne, and Grace, a name we have not yet heard.
Oh, they're going to die real quick.
What?
Anne and Grace both died in 1529 with their mother.
Told you. If you got a weird name, you're going.
And then Gregory actually married Elizabeth Seymour, who was the sister of Jane.
So having
Henry's
the weird
wife.
name is the equivalent of wearing a red shirt in Star Trek.
It is. Weird name, red shirt. And then he also had an illegitimate daughter named Jane, and she got married and did stuff. Like, it doesn't. Sorry, Jane, you're irrelevant. So
Plain Jane, too.
it's a beautiful name, Jeff. I really think you should consider it.
It'd be the most boring child if we
she
name
would
our...
be adorable. Jeff, do you think our child would be boring?
If you name her Jane, yes.
Listeners, we need your help. I want to use the name Jane for a future daughter, and Jeff thinks it's boring. But Jeff and I are huge weirdos, and I think it's highly unlikely that genetically we'd have a weird kid. So vote on our Facebook or Twitter page. Is Jane an acceptable name for our daughter? Say yes, or I'll stop doing the podcast.
Or else.
Wait, what does Jeff
Well,
want?
we have other names picked out that we like. We've got... Okay, actually, we have Henry picked out.
No surprise.
We've got Henry, Lucas, Charlotte, and Evelyn. We love Lucas. And we also are coming around to Nathan. But I love Jane, and Jeff won't let me do it. You know, Indiana law says I don't need you.
I think a really good one, Lisa.
Why?
I hate you.
Maybe Maggie.
No.
More.
No. No. Shut the fuck up. Get out.
It's not like I didn't hear that every day when I was in elementary
For those
school.
who don't know, Jeff and Emily's last name is
I hear it all the time, always. My little brother is like, please name a child
Oh,
Bart.
I'm sorry. You only been a Simpson for 4 years. I've been in it since how long?
Shut up.
Even better, name your child Bort.
I've wanted to do that.
We're not naming our child Bort. Okay, wait. We can't do Jane, but we can do Bort.
How often do you meet a Bort?
You're awful. Why do you want our kid to be murdered?
Look,
Jeff,
no one's gonna remember
weird
Jane, but
names
everyone's gonna
are
remember
red
Bort.
shirts. Don't name our child Bort. Jane will live. Bort will not. Anyway,
I mean, to be fair, every one of Henry's wives that were named Jane has died.
to be fair, everybody from the 1500s has died.
How many of them were named Bort?
All right, back to our
Bort everlasting.
All right, back to our Italian plumber.
Okay, so Cromwell ended up being a lawyer. I actually didn't read how.
What?
Yeah.
So he went from mercenary to I'll be a banker. I guess I'll be a lawyer.
I actually, like, everything skipped over him becoming a lawyer. They're just like, and then he was a lawyer. And I'm like, okay. So I guess.
And it makes sense that his next stride would be, how do I get the closest thing I can to power?
Yes, totally. So
No wonder, this makes so much sense now.
it really does. So as a lawyer, he. I'm tired. Let's take a break.
No.
So as a lawyer, he traveled to Rome for some papal bulls for Henry in 1517 and then again in 1518. And he rose up pretty dang quickly. In 1523, he got a seat on the House of Commons, which I believe is part of their parliamentary system. And then from 1516, he met Wolsey and became his super buddy. Wolsey is the reason Cromwell was like introduced to the court. Like he did have some power, but since Wolsey was Henry's bestie for the longest time, working for him was a big deal.
So I don't know if I've asked this before or if we've talked about it. What was like the age range between the three of them, Henry, Wolsey, and Cromwell?
Cromwell was older than Henry because Cromwell was born in 1485.
When the Tudor reign started.
And Henry was born in 1491. Shit.
Okay.
And
And
then Wolsey was
the eldest.
Yeah.
He was born in, I want to say the 1460s or 1470s.
Okay.
Cromwell was a member of Wolsey's household from 1516 to 1530. What? Oh. He was part of his council starting in 1519, and then in 1529, he became his secretary. So Wolsey was trying to break up Henry's marriage and figure all that out for Henry. So in the mid-1520s, Cromwell was helping Wolsey with the dissolution of the monasteries, and Wolsey was putting the money towards two schools, the King's School in Ipswich and Cardinal College. And by 1529, he was Wolsey's most trusted advisor. So I'd like to point out that Wolsey was Henry's trusted advisor, and then Cromwell was Wolsey's trusted advisor. So now I just try to figure out what Cromwell's most trusted advisor was, and I imagine that there's some lowly peasant washing laundry that's actually advising the king, because the king's like, Wolsey, what should I do? And Wolsey will be like, let me think about it. And then Wolsey goes to Cromwell and he's like, Cromwell, what should I do? And Cromwell will be like, let me think about it. And then Cromwell goes to. So I'm just imagining there's like a laundress working on clothes.
I want to imagine it's like a shoe shine guy. He's like, I got to think of something to help the king out. And the shoe shine guy, he's always wise and full of wisdom, and he's got something smart to say.
That's the way the courts worked. So.
Or maybe it's the guy that wipes his ass.
No. He already. Oh, sorry. It was recognized that he had power. So then Wolsey fell, and Cromwell was very quick to be like, I didn't even know him that well. Like. He was just a dude, and
Wolsey, I hardly knew him.
So he was determined not to fall with him, and he distanced himself from him very quickly. And it worked out well because he was appointed a member of the parliament, and he was favored by the king. And then by the end of 1530, within a year of Wolsey's downfall, Cromwell was a member of Henry's Privy Council. So he had close access to the king. So Cromwell pretty quickly took over the king's legal and parliamentary affairs. Like the king would go out and do his own shit, and Cromwell would be like, "I'll take care of this. You go. You go enjoy hunting another woman."
He's like Yzma.
Yes, he is Yzma. Oh, who's Kronk? Who's Kronk?
Not Brandon.
I think Henry is just Kronk.
No, Henry is totally a Cusco.
Henry's Cusco.
Oh my God! Why hasn't Disney made a Henry VIII movie?
We talked about this before. They did do cartoons about the Tudors. Somebody posted it on our Facebook page, and I reshared it.
No, I want like our typical nowadays CG adventure movie.
I'd be cool with that.
Oh my God, Cromwell could totally be the villain of the movie.
Oh my God, he is. And then wait, who's the princess? Because
not Anne.
They all have tragic endings. How do you Disneyfy?
Did you say all 8?
Did you just say 8? That's
6.
right, you did.
1, 2, 5, 3,
Remember,
sir.
I'm
3.
Look, we all know if Henry could have had 8,
he was working on number 7 when he died. I'm not kidding.
I know.
Catherine Willoughby. Her name was Cat. He needed.
No kidding.
There were 4 names back then, dude.
It was just at that point. It was just easier on buying towels.
Henry, I spell my name with a C. Not anymore. You don't. So Cromwell took over and he began to influence the elections to the House of Commons to make sure that people he wanted in power would be in power. Fuck. Sorry. Can't stop yawning. Sorry, whenever I talk about Cromwell, I just have to randomly say fuck. So he wanted to make sure Henry had royal supremacy, and he manipulated Parliament into passing all these laws that basically made Henry the super head of the church. So he started denouncing. So he manipulated Parliament by like trying to get them riled up about something that really wasn't that big of a deal. But then he used their anger to pass laws. So he denounced clerical abuses and the power of ecclesiastical courts. And the Commons was like, oh my God, you're totally right. And so they did the same thing. And basically it was all like, they said Henry was, quote, the only head, sovereign lord, protector, and defender of the church. So that was all because of Cromwell. So Thomas More was involved. He was one of Henry's smart advisors, loyal advisors, not in it just for power.
Yeah.
And he was trying to get Henry to like understand what he was doing was not good. And ultimately he ended up resigning because he just couldn't contest with Cromwell. And so he basically handed Cromwell another win. And then in the meantime, Cromwell got a shit ton of offices, and I will name off some of them. Commissioner of the Subsidy, Masters of the King's Jewel House, Clerk of the Hanaper, Chancellor of the Exchequer, Recorder, Steward, Lord. He got the lordships of Edmonton and Salisbury, Surveyor of the King's Woods, Principal Secretary, Master of the Rolls. Don't even know what that is.
Ooh.
He was
all the bread.
The constable.
Or a joint. One of the two.
The royal joint roller.
He was the constable, visitor general of the monasteries, another steward, chancellor, commissioner for the peace. That's ironic. That's not ironic. It's just coincidental. No, that one actually is ironic. Lord Privy Seal, receiver of petitions in the Lords, Vicar General and Vice Regent, Dean of what?
You say biker general?
Vicar.
Biker general been just as cool.
I like mine better.
He just comes out in leather chaps.
No, it's still the Tudor clothes, but it's all in leather.
Oh God.
So
Sons of Monarchy.
that was a good one.
You're welcome.
So he got all of those from Henry.
Jeez,
And-
he's got more titles than Daenerys.
Oh my God! If he just went around and introduced himself with all of his titles.
Jesus Christ, Cromwell. I'm sorry you said my name wrong. It's Cromwell, Master of Jewels, Vice Regent, Vice. Oh, man.
Henry is Jesus Christ.
That's the title of the episode. All of it, his name and all of his
Jesus,
titles.
that'd be like an hour's worth. So.
This is Charles Brandon. He's just Chuck.
That's Chuck.
Hey. Hello.
So he actually introduced a bill to Parliament that would restrict the rights of making appeals in Rome. So you used to be able to be like, well, I don't really like your ruling, so Rome can say. And Cromwell was like, nope, not anymore. So he was
Been to Rome, don't like it.
So he was authorized to discredit the papacy by Henry. And then he supervised the parliaments that enacted the legislation that would formally break them with Rome. So that included the Act of Succession, which said that Henry and Anne's daughters and sons would inherit, and then after she was beheaded, Jane. The Dispensations Act, which granted royal supremacy, and the Act for the Submission of the Clergy, which made all the clergy swear that they'd listen to only Henry. So then in 1534, he was made Henry's principal secretary and chief minister, and he made Parliament members swear an oath of succession, and then all of the king's subjects had to swear the oath of succession. So every time we talk about Henry's reform, he may have started it, but Henry was pretty damn Catholic to the core. He just didn't really want to listen to the Pope. So Cromwell was the one who then took everything and actually made it into the religious Reformation. Henry was just breaking with Rome. He didn't really want to get rid of everything. Cromwell was the one who was like, nope, we need the Bible in English, and we got to make sure that the clergy are allowed to marry, and that, all of these changes that would make them a Protestant country would happen.
Henry's like, bro, you know why I'm doing
Look,
this, right?
I just want to get laid.
Like, I just want to get laid, dude. Like, we don't need to go through all
You're
this.
you're
like,
just pull it back
really?
a little bit. Pull it back.
Chill, Cromwell.
Look,
Chill,
Master
brah.
of Rollers, could you please just get me a joint?
Roll me a tuber, it'll be cool, man.
I just pictured Henry VIII with one of those Jamaican floppy rainbow hats on.
He looks like Chong.
He's got like Bob Marley posters all in his room.
Cromwell is Cheech. Henry is Chong.
Oh my God. Your Highness too.
Even higher.
Oh, man.
Holy shit.
We've got like 6 movie ideas out of this
Fucking-
entire episode.
Fucking
Like this
Cromwell.
is a good one.
So in
Cromwell that ends well.
that's this episode's title.
There's the title.
Oh God, hold on. My eyes, like I'm weeping from laughing, and my eyes all blurry right now. So, in 1534, Cromwell brought back treason laws. He like really brought back treason laws.
What? Why would he want to do that?
So
Himberlin.
he made it illegal to deny royal titles. It was illegal to speak anything rebellious, and it was illegal to call the king a heretic, a tyrant, an infidel, or a usurper.
I like infidel.
I love infidel. Okay, so here's
like
where we'll get a little
Aladdin.
bit into Cromwell's relationship with Anne. So formerly they were allies because they both wanted Henry to make changes to the church that would benefit society better in their views. So they got along great at first. And then Cromwell, when he started making sure the monasteries were no longer monasteries, Cromwell put the money in the king's coffers, and Anne wanted all of that money to go to education and charities. So here's another reason where people need to stop vilifying Anne, if they still do, because she clearly wanted something better for the people of England. She didn't want the money to just go away. So she's not a bad guy. Cromwell sucks. So Cromwell just he just put the money in the king's coffers, and Anne got pissed, and because she's Anne and she wasn't going to take that sitting down, she ordered her chaplains to preach against him. So her almoner, John Skip, did a sermon where he basically he denounced Cromwell and the privy councillors, and he said they need to stop giving the king shitty advice, and everybody needs to stop thinking about this as a royal gain and you know, do better for society. So John Skip got screwed over because of that, of course. And Cromwell Anne was now an enemy of Cromwell. So when Anne failed to give Henry a son in just 3 years, I'd be screwed. Cromwell basically engineered the entire downfall. So he was authorized to prosecute Anne. And in a letter to his king, the ambassador Eustace Chapuis wrote, he set himself to devise and conspire the said affair. So it seems pretty likely that Cromwell made it all up, found fake evidence, and set up the whole she's a witch and she is sleeping with all these men. Excuse me, sir, your motorcycle.
That was Thomas Cromwell driving by.
Give everyone the bird. No. So would this been 1536?
Yes.
That's what I thought.
Yep. So after her downfall, after she was beheaded, he was named Lord Privy Seal because George Boleyn Thomas, their dick dad, had previously been. So he was named Lord Privy Seal. That meant that so when you signed letters back then, you had a seal. It was like a stamp. And that was an official correspondence. So giving somebody that seal meant that they were basically allowed to do whatever they want. And he was also named Baron Cromwell.
That sounds like a villain
Ooh.
name.
He is a villain. So
He
here's
just
where
needed Vaughn in the
Baron
he just needed
von
Vaughn in the middle of it,
Baron
and he would
von
have been
Cromwell.
Baron von Cromwell.
So because he's a super dick, this pisses me off. He wanted to make sure that any book that was possibly popish to be destroyed. And he took that to such extremes that Oxford University, this was 1536, they didn't have another library until 1602.
Jeez.
Yes.
Oh wow.
It's like way into like Elizabeth's reign.
Yeah, that's after. She died in 1601.
God.
Yeah, so not good. So the 10 articles were written, and they were basically saying, like, this is how you are religious nowadays. And they were backed by Cromwell, and Henry was like, yeah, sure, do whatever. And that led to the Pilgrimage of the Grace. That was part of what led to the Pilgrimage of the Grace. And mostly they were all like, please get rid of Cromwell. He's a fucking blacksmith's son. He sucks, and he's not giving you good advice. So once that pilgrimage of the grace was defeated, Cromwell was like, I'm going to do what I want. And he went about dismantling shrines, statues, any sort of images of religious life because he viewed that as idolatry, worshiping an image instead of worshiping
How many golden
God.
cows do you guys have?
Sorry.
I
What?
was going to ask. It's probably been answered before, but I've
Tell
got
me.
very bad memory. Sorry. Give me a second.
It's fine. Go.
Trying to formulate what I'm thinking.
Do you want me to keep talking, or you want to?
Was Henry very much a competent ruler, or was a lot of it done by his behind the scenes guys like Cromwell?
So, I think it's important to understand how kingship worked. And from what I gather, even back, so Henry made an effort to make it so a single man himself could pass the laws and do whatever he wanted. And he did that by stacking up like Parliament with people he wanted, but really it was Cromwell. Okay, so here's the way it worked. Cromwell, Wolsey, Charles Brandon, they were advisors to the king, but they were listened to so much by the king that ultimately they were able to make a lot of leading decisions. And ironically, that was when Henry was a good king, was when he listened to like Cromwell and Wolsey. It was later in his reign, after, spoiler alert, he beheads Cromwell, that he stopped having advisors. He still had Brandon to an extent, but his power was pretty much not important at that time period. So it was the later years where he became intensely insane. So I feel like he was a good king to start because he listened to his advisors. And it was the later years where he stopped listening to advisors and his privy council, and he just raged all the time, where he became a bad king.
So he wasn't. So he pretty much wasn't anything without.
No,
his
but like
advisors.
no king would have been. Like
Okay. And that was just kind of another question I had, like how much of your job as king is dependent on your.
Actually,
your
I want to
counsel
talk.
and your,
I want to make that a
advisors.
whole episode, is talking about what it meant to be a king in the Tudor times. And we can talk about all this stuff
Yeah, because
because
we always tend to put a lot of weight on the king like they have such absolute power that they just say what they want and it's done.
well,
whereas
he did in the later years, and then he was known as a tyrant.
Yeah. Whereas
So-
people don't realize there is a lot of counseling and people.
Well, he can pretty much do what he
You
wanted.
can, but it depends on what kind of king you are.
Yeah.
It's like when we were talking about Game of Thrones, how there's I think it was Tywin Lannister when he was talking to
Who was talking to Jamie?
No, he was talking to his nephew, his grandson, the second
Joffrey? Tommen?
Tommen. He was talking about like the different kings in the previous ones.
I don't remember.
He's
that
like, what kind of
episode.
king do you want to be? He's like, oh, I could be like my dad, Baratheon. He's like, yes, but he became a fat and sluggish and weak king. Like
Didn't
he's
really rule.
he
The
pretty much-
council ruled,
he pretty much just started talking to him about like what the flaws of other kings were.
which is probably a good way to do it.
Mhm.
So I know I didn't answer your question completely, Garrett, but I think that's worth its own episode.
Yeah, I think we could easily talk
Right,
about that.
you
Yeah.
gave me a good idea, a better idea anyway.
So back to fucking Cromwell.
Mm,
Okay,
I'd
never
rather
mind. We're
not.
done.
I'd rather not fuck Cromwell.
No. That's what happens.
Kill, fuck, marry, Cromwell, Henry, and Wolsey.
Well, man,
Kill Cromwell,
kill Cromwell is a pretty easy one
fuck Henry, and marry Wolsey.
because you get to be married to
Okay.
Sam Neill.
Yeah.
Also, gotta remember he was a man of the cloth.
No.
Could religious leaders get married back
No,
in the day?
he
or
had a
no?
Well, that was part of the religious changes that were that they were trying to bring about, was like allowing the religious to marry And Henry was like, no,
Okay.
fuck you. No, that's not the way it works. So actually, that brings us back to our topic. Henry started to become pretty unhappy with all of the changes, and so did the conservatives, because remember, Henry was still Catholic. He just didn't want to listen to the Pope. So when the conservatives started expressing their discontent with Cromwell, Cromwell was like, well, fuck you, and he had them arrested. And then Henry grew resistant to more changes, and the 6 Articles was published, which reaffirmed traditional views on Mass, the sacraments, and priesthood. So that was a loss for Cromwell and a win for all the conservatives, and especially because they had Henry on their side. So then Cromwell was like, hey, it would be a really good idea if you married Anne of Cleves. And Henry was like, okay, I guess. And he did it, and then Anne was ugly, and Henry was pissed, and he was angry at Cromwell. So Henry and Anne married on January 6th of 1540. And then just a couple months later, even though Henry was pissed at Cromwell, he gave him the earldom of Essex and named him the Lord Great Chamberlain. But he was still falling from favor. And it's that whole weird, like, Henry was so easy to switch. It's like when Henry and Anne devised a plan to have Eustace Chapuis, the ambassador of Spain, acknowledge Anne as queen right before he had her imprisoned. It's like that weird thing, and it's just another one of those things where I think he was mentally ill, because he would go from like, I love this person, they mean everything to me, to off with their head, literally. So on June 10th, just 6 months after the marriage, Cromwell was arrested at a council meeting, and he was imprisoned in the Tower. And these are the charges on his bill of attainder: supporting Anabaptists, which was, it's kind of like Protestantism, and remember, they weren't calling it Protestantism. Corrupt practices, leniency in matters of justice, acting for personal gain, protecting Protestants accused of heresy, and this one was weird, plotting to marry Lady Mary Tudor, so Henry's daughter. So that one's weird because she's super Catholic, and Cromwell was clearly Protestant. And although that would be the sticking point because it's illegal, it was absolutely treasonous to attempt to marry into the royal family, because that's trying to take power. So all of his titles were stripped, so it no longer took 1 hour to welcome him to a room. He was simply, I'm not kidding, his business card now says Thomas Cromwell, cloth carter. So while he was in prison, Cromwell wrote to Henry, and he's like, I love the idea of you getting annulled. What a great idea. What a fool I was, and you are so brilliant. And then he ended it with, most gracious prince, I cry for mercy, mercy, mercy. Of course, it didn't work, and he was condemned and beheaded on July 28th, 1540, the day Henry married Catherine Howard.
Have a wedding, have a beheading. Anyway, we're going to have a good time.
So that execution was botched, not to the point where like people got drunk, but one of the ambassadors wrote that the executioner was more of a butcher than an executioner. So his head was placed on...
I feel we hear that a lot.
His head was placed on a spike on the Tower of London, and Henry very quickly regretted it. He was like, shit, I liked Cromwell.
I needed
He called
him
him his most loyal servant, and he got angry, and he accused his counselors of lying to him about pretexts and false accusations against Cromwell. So that's...
Sounds like buyer's remorse.
Executioner's remorse. So here's a fun thing I learned. So there is a historical figure. His name is Oliver Cromwell, and he was a Puritan leader, and he was very important in the early 1600s, and he had something to do. Okay, so after Queen Elizabeth, there was James the 1st/6th, and then Charles the 1st, and then Charles the 2nd. Charles the 2nd there was a revolution, and kings were no more for a little bit. And Charles the 2nd was that king, and Oliver Cromwell, I'm pretty sure it was Charles the 2nd, and Oliver Cromwell was a big leader in that time. He was the one who was like, I'm in charge now. That was the great grandson of Cromwell's nephew. So that Oliver Cromwell is related to fucking Cromwell.
Huh.
Yeah. So first I actually thought it was just a coincidence. I'm like, wow,
Yeah,
that name.
it's kind of like how we have there's a lot of common first names. You're sure there's like a
Yeah.
few repeats in last names in some
Yeah.
places.
Cromwell was the Smith of that day.
Anyway.
So Cromwell never really had kids himself.
Yes, he did.
Well, do they actually like live long?
Yeah. There was a guy.
But they
You know
probably
that- no.
didn't do much.
I mean, nobody does much these days. There's a guy who's a direct descendant. He's alive today. Who's a direct descendant of of Thomas Cromwell. He found out on that show, Who Do You Think You Are? I think it might be a celebrity of some sort, because I think that's all that show does. Who do you think you
So was Cromwell then
are?
married?
Yeah, I told you. He married a woman named Elizabeth
But
Wick, and they had 3 children.
That was his only wife, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Danny Dyer.
Don't
Do-
know. Don't know who that
Eh?
is.
Hold on, I'm gonna find out. He's an actor.
Okay.
Hold on, let me find out. Danny.
Apparently not a big one.
Danny Dyer is in EastEnders. I think he's British, and that's why we don't know him.
Yeah.
Oh, Danny Dyer was from Donnie Darko.
EastEnders, Assassin.
Oh,
Do you
okay. I
really?
know that show.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a British show.
He was in a show called Plebes. A Run for Your Wife, Deviation, Age of Heroes, Free Runner, The Last 7, Dead Cert. That sounds like the most British title ever. Pimp. Just for the Record, Dead Man Running, Malice in Wonderland, Doghouse,
That's a album.
Adulthood, The Altogether, Closure, Outlaws. He was in that show Skins.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
So
Huh.
he's
So
a
direct descendant.
direct descendant. He was in Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. He played the voice of Kent Paul.
Ooh.
Yeah, so that's who he
It's
is.
fascinating that the song that Cromwell has such a direct descendant still around to this day.
I'm sure a lot of these people have direct descendants.
I don't know
People
if I
just
talked
don't
about
know.
this last week, but I got to talk about it again because I'm still so fucking jealous. There's one of our fans who is a direct descendant of Mary Boleyn. Possibly. Okay, so
That's
she's a
cool.
direct descendant of Mary Boleyn, but she's also a direct descendant of one of the 2 children who could have been Henry VIII's bastard. So it's incredibly fucking possible that she's a descendant of Henry VIII. I don't give. No, she's not. Her great.
She's not.
No,
a
I don't
bastard.
care. I want to meet her. I want to be her. Give me your life.
Give me your DNA.
I mean, do you know your ancestry?
Well, I
Maybe you
actually
are.
want to go and pay for an Ancestry.com thing so I can find out who I'm related to. Although,
You guys don't
No.
watch South Park, right? No, there's a very good episode about finding out ancestry and doing DNA tests. It was very hilarious.
I will
Very
trust
good
you
stuff.
on that one.
I'll tell you after the show.
Okay. Anyway, any more questions?
No. that
Hearing
was-
how he
that was good
grew
stuff.
up makes way more sense about why he was when he got to that point.
Yeah.
He seemed like a guy who was just trying so hard to get away from where he originated from.
And then he dies as Cloth Carter.
Yeah. But that's very impressive for a guy who's the son of a blacksmith to go on to have such high power.
I know.
It sounds like a story.
sounds-
It sounds like
He's-
Baelish.
That's what I'm about to say. He sounds like Littlefinger.
He's absolutely
Mm-hmm.
Baelish. Yeah, I totally see that. And I understand where he got to where he got, and it was a big thing for him, but I also think he was a dick. So,
Oh yeah.
I tried to leave out much of the
Well,
personal stuff.
So is Littlefinger.
Yeah, I
He, I
fucking,
mean,
oh,
yeah, a lot of it
Littlefinger.
was it sounds like a lot more. He was just do whatever he could to get to where he wanted to be.
Yeah, pretty much.
Also, I got to give you guys an update on
Tell
where
me.
I am with Game of Thrones.
Garrett, you motherfucker. You're a bitch.
No, I'm gonna catch up on it next month because next
Sure,
month I'm taking
Jan.
a sabbatical from video games. So I'll have
How
time
long
to
is your
actually watch
sabbatical going to
things.
last?
the whole month.
So jealous. Are you gonna come visit us?
No, maybe. I won't have time. I got all these things to catch up
We're
on.
the most important.
I'll totally come visit you guys. Of course I will.
Well, that's cool. Well, I think we're done then.
Yeah, I think that's it for Cromwell.
All right.
We actually got a lot of information on him.
Yeah, we did. I'm happy. Okay, so until next time, right?
Find us on Facebook
Yeah.
Until
and
next
Twitter.
time.
On
Yes.
Facebook, you can find us on our page of Tutor I Hardly Know Her. And Twitter, you can interact with Emily because she loves doing that. And I actually like seeing a lot of the interactions we get on that as well when I do at least see it.
Oh, wait, I do want to share one of our Twitter
And that's
interactions.
on the Tutor handle is Tutor Know Her.
Yes.
But one of our interactions I did like we have from our
So-
fans about after the spooky episode.
One of our guests messaged us on Twitter, one of our listeners, and she said, "Why do I get the feeling that you guys would be the best hosts of a BuzzFeed Unsolved style show where you go to Tudor palaces and try to find ghosts? Garrett gets a ghost girlfriend, and Emily insults Jane Seymour's ghost for being boring."
You know what? I'll take a
And
ghost
then they want us
girlfriend.
to befriend the ghost of Henry VIII, and Garrett and Jeff can get some good codpiece tips. So, yeah, I was
love
really
it.
happy with that one. And
BuzzFeed
okay,
give
wait,
us money
here's
to
another
make
one.
this show.
Garrett. Another listener was, she heard the episode where we talked about your brother stealing a sleeve of communion wafers, and she she goes, "I'm dying over Garrett's story of his brother stealing communion. I was an altar kid and would sneak some before mass too." And I was like, "What? Was this just a thing all of you guys did?"
Emily was so innocent.
I totally like me and the other kids who are altar boys or girls or what have you, altar children. We would, after mass, you take the wine and you pour a little bit in the cup and you take a shot.
My dad does the communion serving thing at church, and we like to joke around that he really enjoys it when he gets to finish off the last glass of wine. He gets so annoyed with us.
My favorite is when he'll suggest to buy that wine for a dinner meal. I'm
I
like,
know.
you don't buy communion wine for.
Okay,
home.
I would totally I would totally start going to church again if the priest, when he's finishing off the last of the wine, he just downs it and says, "Woo!"
Just slams the shot glass on the pedestal.
Okay, guys, I think that's it.
Oh God, that was
So
priceless.
until next time,
Until next time.
divorced,
Until next
beheaded,
time.
died,
Divorced,
divorced,
beheaded,
beheaded,
died,
survived.
survived.
Goodbye.
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 I wonder
Goodbye,
how many of
everybody.
our listeners stopped listening as soon as we started saying until next time, and they missed out on that awesome woo!